Ever wondered what it was like to sail into the complete unknown, with only a wooden ship between you and the vast, mysterious ocean? Today, we re-diving into one of the greatest adventure stories in human history. Ferdinand Magellan's epic quest to circumnavigate the globe. This isn't just a story about sailing. It's a tale of ambition, mutiny, starvation, and the relentless human spirit. So buckle up, because we're about to set sail on a journey that reshaped the world map forever. It all started in the early 1500s, a time known as the Age of Discovery. European powers were in a fierce race to find new trade routes to the lucrative Spice Islands in modern-day Indonesia. Spices like cloves, cinnamon, and nutmeg were worth more than gold, and controlling their trade meant immense wealth and power. The Portuguese had a solid grip on the eastern route around Africa, but a determined Portuguese navigator, Ferdinand Magellan, had a radical idea. He believed he could reach the Spice Islands by sailing west, across the Atlantic, and through a rumored strait in the New World. After being repeatedly rejected by the Portuguese king, Magellan took his audacious plan to Spain. The young Spanish king, Charles I, later Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, was intrigued. If Magellan succeeded, Spain could claim a westward route to the Spice Islands, bypassing their Portuguese rivals entirely. It was a high-risk, high-reward gamble, and Charles decided to take it. He funded an expedition of 5 ships, collectively known as the Armada de Molucca, the Trinidad, San Antonio, Concepcion, Victoria, and Santiago. In September 1519, over 270 men from across Europe set sail from Sanlúcar de Barrameda, Spain. Magellan, a stern and unyielding captain, was in command. From the very beginning, the voyage was plagued with problems. The Spanish captains under his command were resentful of their Portuguese leader. The ships were old and leaky, and the provisions were questionable. As they crossed the vast, seemingly endless Atlantic, tensions began to simmer. The crew grew restless and fearful. Where were they going? Would they ever see land again? After months at sea, they finally reached the coast of what is now Brazil. They sailed south, hugging the coastline, desperately searching for the legendary strait that would lead them to the Pacific. Winter set in, forcing them to anchor in a desolate bay in Patagonia they named Port St. Julian. The conditions were brutal. Rations were cut, the cold was unbearable, and morale hit rock bottom. This was the breaking point. The Spanish captains saw their chance and launched a full-blown mutiny. 3 of the 5 ships turned against Magellan. But Magellan was as cunning as he was determined. Through a mix of brutal force and clever tactics, he crushed the rebellion. The ringleaders were executed or marooned, left to an uncertain fate on a desolate shore. Magellan had reasserted his authority, but at a terrible cost. The fleet was fractured, and trust was shattered. To make matters worse, while scouting ahead, the smallest ship, the Santiago, was wrecked in a storm. Now, only 4 ships remained. Pressing on, they continued their search. Finally, in October 1520, over a year after leaving Spain, they found it. A winding, treacherous waterway that cut through the southern tip of South America. Today, we call it the Strait of Magellan. Navigating this maze of fjords and islands was a nightmare. The currents were violent, and the weather was unpredictable. During the harrowing 38-day passage, the crew of the San Antonio, the largest ship, lost hope. They secretly turned back and deserted the expedition, taking a huge portion of the remaining supplies with them back to Spain. When Magellan and his 3 remaining ships finally emerged from the strait, they were greeted by a vast, calm, and seemingly endless body of water. It was so peaceful compared to the stormy Atlantic that Magellan named it the Mar Pacifico, the peaceful sea. But this peace was deceptive. They had no idea of the sheer scale of the ocean that lay before them. They expected a short journey to the Spice Islands. Instead, they sailed for 98 agonizing days without sighting land. This leg of the journey was a descent into hell. Food ran out completely. The men were forced to eat sawdust, leather strips torn from the rigging, and even rats, which were sold for a fortune. Their drinking water turned yellow and putrid. Scurvy, a horrific disease caused by a lack of vitamin C, ravaged the crew. Their gums swelled over their teeth, their joints ached, and old wounds reopened. Men died daily. Their bodies unceremoniously dropped into the vast, indifferent Pacific. It's a miracle anyone survived. At long last, in March 1521, they stumbled upon the island of Guam and then sailed on to the Philippines. For the exhausted, starving crew, it was paradise. They found fresh food, water, and friendly locals. Here, Magellan's personal slave, Enrique of Malacca, who he had acquired years earlier, discovered he could understand the local language. This was a monumental moment. It meant they had done it. They had crossed the Pacific and reached the eastern edge of the known world. They had successfully circled the globe, at least linguistically. But Magellan's ambition would be his undoing. He became entangled in local politics, trying to convert the indigenous people to Christianity and secure their allegiance to the Spanish crown. He agreed to help a newly converted chieftain in a battle against a rival leader, Lapu-Lapu, on the island of Mactan. On April 27, 1521, Magellan led a small force to attack a much larger army of Mactan warriors. It was a fatal miscalculation. Overconfident and outnumbered, Magellan was wounded and ultimately killed in the fighting. The great navigator who had braved mutiny, starvation, and the world's largest ocean died on a remote beach, thousands of miles from home. With their leader gone, the survivors were thrown into chaos. More men were massacred in a betrayal at a feast shortly after. The crew was now so small, they couldn't man all 3 ships. They made the difficult decision to burn the Concepcion, the ship in the worst condition. The remaining 2 ships, the Trinidad and the Victoria, finally reached their original goal, the Spice Islands. They loaded their holds with precious clothes, the prize they had suffered so much to obtain. But the journey home was still fraught with peril. The Trinidad attempted to sail back across the Pacific, but was ultimately captured by the Portuguese. That left only 1 ship, the Victoria, under the command of Juan Sebastian Elcano. Elcano made the daring choice to continue west, sailing across the Indian Ocean and around Africa, a route controlled by the hostile Portuguese. It was a desperate race against time, dodging Portuguese patrols and battling starvation and disease once more. Finally, on September 6, 1522, almost exactly 3 years after they departed, the battered Victoria limped into the harbor of Sanlúcar de Barrameda in Spain. Of the original fleet of 5 ships and over 270 men, only 1 ship and 18 starving, ghostly figures remained. But they had done it. They had completed the first circumnavigation of the Earth. The return of the Victoria caused a sensation. The 18 survivors were walking proof that the world was round and could be sailed around. The cargo of clothes they brought back was so valuable that it more than paid for the entire cost of the expedition. Juan Sebastian Elcano was hailed as a hero, while Magellan's name was initially tarnished by the reports of the mutineers who had returned earlier. Over time, however, history has rightfully recognized Ferdinand Magellan's monumental achievement. While he didn't complete the journey himself, it was his vision, his iron will, and his unwavering determination that made it all possible. His voyage shattered old geographical myths, opened up the Pacific Ocean to European exploration, and connected the world in a way it had never been before. It remains one of the most incredible and harrowing feats of navigation and endurance in human history, a timeless testament to the courage and curiosity that drives us to explore the unknown. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey back in time. If you enjoyed this story of adventure and discovery, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more epic tales from history. Let us know in the comments what other historical journeys you'd like to see us cover. See you next time.